Well. Welcome back to Read Becca for my weekly chatty catch-up on everything that I read, everything I'm currently reading, and everything I'm looking forward to reading, as well as some general chit-chat and random stuff. This has been a slow and very sporadic reading week for sure, and it continues to be a very slow reading weekend this weekend. But I did finish some stuff, so that's good, and my reading significantly diverged from where I was planning to be this week. So let's dive in, I think, to the fun one first. So I finished up Catquake. I finished up No One Leaves the Castle by Christopher Healy, and it's a middle grade in a fantasy setting that is an isolated closed circle mystery. It was just a good time. I would say the vibe is very similar to Ursula Vernon / T. Kingfisher's Castle Hangnail. So we're following at the beginning this butler from the castle of Baron Angbar of Carpasia, who's not very nice or well liked, going to town to hire a bounty hunter because they believe that Runar the Unknowable, the great sorcerer, has stolen an item from their castle and they need to catch him. And so they hunt down Runar and get back to the castle and discover the item is not missing. It's in fact there. So everyone's at the castle at this point, and the item goes missing again. Runar, being a magician or a sorcerer, encloses everyone magically in the castle so no one can leave because we know the thief is there. And unfortunately, then someone dies. So this turns into a murder mystery, and that is the big story here. And so it's very silly, it's very fun and whimsical. There's a lot about what your social preconceptions are, I guess, of things. And so I very much enjoyed that aspect. But yeah, it just was full of humor and wit. And also the mystery was actually really fun to follow and intriguing to follow. So I enjoyed all of the twists and turns along the way. This was just a great time. And apparently the author has some other very well-loved books. So I think I will be looking into some of the author's other work. And then I less successfully finished Mirrored Heavens by Rebecca Roanhorse, the third in the Between Earth and Sky trilogy. And I think, at least in part, this was my mental state. I talked about that before, I think last week and a couple of weeks ago. But definitely that played in because this is big, epic fantasy, very broad in scope. And I have loved the first two books so much in this series. I just think I was not in the right place for it. So I don't think I'm even going to rate it until I come back later and reread the whole trilogy together. Because what's important for this is that it is big and epic in scope and it's got many perspectives, but it is a continuous timeline of a trilogy. So going into this third book, where from the beginning of the story, this is a pre-Columbian story leading up to an eclipse. It's very like factions trying to gain power through some mythology that they know about this future eclipse that's coming. And so all of that was such a great premise. There's these incredible things to do with the eclipse, to do with crows, and the idea of this crow god is very prominent. And so cultural mythology is very steeped through this. And I loved all of those aspects through this story. But this third one just had no momentum for me at all. And so at the beginning, we were coming out of something really big having happened, obviously, at the end of the second book. And it felt like just people bickering at each other about the fallout of that. That was all it felt like for like 200 pages at the beginning of this. And so I think coming in from that, having happened immediately into the people discoursing about what's going on, might have worked better, but it just had no momentum, like I said. And then once we finally did get things happening, I was liking many of the things happening, but they were delivered in such a way that right now, I think, in my mind, I was just so cynical about it. I kept being like, this is so cheesy. Even just minor things. Like there was this moment where I don't think this in any way could spoil anything for you. An assassin is staying in someone else's house and is sleeping, and they hear somebody in the kitchen, and they rush into the kitchen, knife wielding and shouting danger. An assassin. And I just could not find that at all believable that, number one, they know they're in somebody else's house and they're not going to be off their guard sufficiently just because they're sleeping, but they're going to rush into the kitchen. And then that an assassin would respond by shouting and going there. Like, no, that's not the thing. Okay. So it was full of things that were, for me, had that tone of it, just being something that was just so silly and over the top in a not fun way. Just unbelievable, and I couldn't suspend my disbelief for it. And so funny enough, the being in somebody else's house thing actually came up in one of the Frida Klein books that I've been reading too, where Frida is in somebody else's house that she doesn't have permission to be in, but it's probably totally fine for her to be there. But she answers a knock on the door. Like, every single thing in your body is going to tell you if you're in a house you're not supposed to be in, you don't go answer the door. You're not going to react that way naturally in any way. You're going to recoil and hide. So yeah, I was just, the things were getting to me this week for sure. So it was full of those things. And as I was heading toward the end in the last little stretch of the book, I realized, I was like, I do not understand or care about anyone's motivation here at this point. I don't know what anyone is working toward anymore, other than just simply power. I don't know why they want that power anymore. So I think I really just need to reread the trilogy from the beginning to get the continuous story, because this was falling apart for me as a singular book distanced from the others. I did like the way that it ended, I have to say that. But I'm not sure it came to the conclusions as a series that I really needed, if that makes any sense. Yeah, so it was not a success. I don't think I'm even going to rate it, but I am glad I finished it. And I do hope that reading it as a continuous trilogy works out well in the future. So on from there, as I mentioned, Frida Klein. So I did actually finish what I thought was the last Frida Klein book. So I'm not going to talk about that yet, because as it turns out, this series follows the days of the week, basically, the book names. So it starts on Monday and I thought ends on Sunday. I finished Sunday Silence and realized there is a whole nother book, The Day of the Dead. And the book that I read and the final book are basically two parts of a single story. So I do want to very much get to it soon, but my library doesn't have the audiobook. And it is certainly not in the cards for me to pick up like a 400-page thriller right now, right this moment. So soon, but not immediately. Yeah, so that hampers my plans to finish off Frida Klein very rapidly. But I have been enjoying this very much, other than the minor annoyances. I think that's all for the books that I've finished this week. So I am reading, my plans diverge significantly here in that my hold for Orbital actually came in weirdly right after it has just won the Booker Prize. I had my hold in because it was a nominee for the Le Guin Prize as well this year. So I definitely wanted to read it, and I am audiobooking that one. And I also basically just threw out my plans for anything else and went ahead and bought a copy of The Spell Shop on ebook. I was waiting in multiple different lines for it from the library, but that is actually my book club, my in-person book club book for the month. And it seems like exactly the right vibe I sort of need right now. So I'm very slowly reading that. I've started that and I think I'm only 4 chapters in, so over multiple reading sessions. So it's not going rapidly. Nothing is going rapidly right now. Mainly I have been watching stuff. So onward, I guess, to the long list of things I have watched. I guess let's start with the ridiculous one here. I've watched Hot Frosty. I think every year Netflix has a particular Christmas movie that they are really pushing as their big hit, and it's kind of ridiculous usually every year, and that is this one this year, I think. So as the title implies, it is a Frosty the Snowman story, and it is a cute rom-com where we have Lacey Chabert, I think that's her last name, as the protagonist, who is a widow that lost her husband and hasn't yet moved on with her life and isn't really taking care of herself, but she runs a diner in town in Hope Springs. And one night there has been a snowman contest, and somebody made a very hot snowman, and she puts a scarf on him, and of course he then comes to life. And in the process does some crimes accidentally that set off the main, I guess, tension of the story, in that wonderfully, Craig Robinson and Joe Latrulio are the local cops who are perfect. And they spend the time fumbling around trying to find out who the criminal is. But so Hot Frosty is just a very hot man who, because he is actually a snowman, is constantly going around without his shirt on because he has a very low body temperature, and so he overheats very easily. It's ridiculous. But he endears himself to the entire town, as you can tell. So it's a very heartwarming, lovely story. I really think that less so the romance part of the story and more so the cops part of the story was actually great. So I actually enjoyed the policing side much more. But it was entertaining and definitely silly, good fun. Then I watched 2 series from Nebula. One was the Crime Spree, and the other is The Getaway. Both of these are made by the same people that make Jetlag the game. That one is also on YouTube, and these 2 are not. So I finally got to watch these on Nebula, and Crime Spree predates Jetlag, so it kind of led into Jetlag the game. And Crime Spree is basically the 3 guys, one of them trying to go around breaking very obscure, ridiculous laws in different states, flying around, and he's got to figure out where he wants to go, and the other 2 trying to catch him in the act, basically, and without knowing where he's going to go, but they have a tracker, and he doesn't know where they are. So that one was great fun, and you can definitely see the inspiration from that one into their doing the different games in Jetlag. But then this latest one, The Getaway, is very cool because as like a board gamer, there are a multitude of games that have the dynamics like Resistance or Werewolf, those kind of things, where it's like a social game, social manipulation game. And you strategize because one person is sort of the odd man out. Or I guess on TV you have the mole. It's that same kind of framework. However, The Getaway, the whole premise is they get this group of people, and they're all like Nebula creators. They get this group of people together and they have to do challenges along the way, but the main thing is that one of them is supposed to be the snitch in the group. However, they've set this up so everyone is the snitch, and they're all strategizing, and as it ramps up over the series, it's so great and hilarious to watch them strategizing against each other, all thinking that they're the only snitch. It's such good fun. So I had a great time with that. Yeah. And what else did I watch? I watched something else. Let's see. I also watched Sprint Season 2, a docuseries on Netflix. And this is about sprinters, 100 and 200 meter sprinters. And I enjoyed the first season very much, but this season was even better. We're following most of the same people, but this time around it's in the lead up to and during the Paris Olympics. And so like the stakes are so much higher, and it's incredible to watch these people who have prepared for years just for this few seconds of running. Yeah, it's incredible. And so stakes were very high. It was very gripping to watch. I think I just binged it all in one go pretty much. And I think that's it for what I saw screen-wise, but I did also go to the theater and saw the Broadway touring show of Peter Pan that had an immense amount of just childhood nostalgia for me. It was everything you expect. They had updated like the setting, I guess, to be modern, and so it had some certain modern nods, but everything else was exactly what you expect. All the musical numbers were familiar, and I loved that. The staging was cool because the entire back was like a video screen, full color. So that was really cool, and they were able to do some kind of cool stuff with the shadow because of that, so very neat. Yeah, so I enjoyed that. Super fun. I always love going to the theater. So I think that takes us on to life stuff and why this has been a very slow week. I talked last week about how Dusty was not doing very well. He was very sick last week, so he's doing better, but there was a progression of better and worse and different problems. So completely different problems from last weekend. And we had multiple planned visits to the vet this week. He had to do like an all-day stay at the vet to do blood glucose because he's diabetic. So that had to happen. Like it was a lot this week. So Now, it seems, unfortunately, he's becoming a hospice foster for me. So that's very sad. I guess I should preface this with, it's hard, but I am fine. It is also just one more, like, a pebble of hard thing on top of the pile of hard things. So that makes it kind of not fine, but I am fine about this. I'm very glad that, this is the situation he's in, that he's not stuck outside being miserable or in the shelter even. He's comfortable and loved in a home. So as far as what that means, I don't really know right now. No one really does for now, until he either stabilizes or doesn't, other than that he's going to be with me. He's not going to be up for adoption anymore, so he will be with me for however much longer he needs. And he's got a lot of medications that he's on, and hopefully those will help him and he will maybe stabilize. I have had a hospice foster before. Many of you who've been around for a couple of years remember my foster Coco, who was with me for a long time and everybody loved him. He was originally just a standard foster who, after 3 months, became a hospice foster. And initially, we expected he would only be with me for a few weeks after that. And he wound up going for 2 years with me. So we don't know. So it will basically be kind of seeing how he does this next week, if he's responding to medications well. He's got a whole lot. I'm super thrilled to be doing fluids daily again. I had to do that with Coco as well, so great fun. I hate needles, and now I'm having to do insulin and fluids. But we're gonna do what we can to make sure he is in his best condition, most comfortable he can be. He seems very tired right now, and that's so far, right this moment, the worst of what he's feeling. So as far as I can tell. So better than last week, thankfully. So that's the main thing for this week, really. And it's heartbreaking. It is, but like I said, I am very happy that he's where he's comfortable and loved. And that's exactly why I'm happy to foster, why it's so important to have fosters, so that he isn't spending this time, miserable and scared in the shelter, even though, they do love him for the days he had to be there for the vet. It was awful for him. So yeah. Anyway, I think that's all for my general catch up. I do actually have a number of recommendations because there have been some great videos. So 2 semi-related videos. The first is from Stacey Abrams from her YouTube channel Assembly Required. She did a short, less than 10-minute video on what we can do next. So steps to become politically active in some way that are very practical and actionable. Some minor, some more major, but what you can do next is, I think, something that a lot of us are asking and wondering what to take action on. So very important. And then the other one is from Books and Cooks here on BookTube. Gave us a great set of recommendations on books to alchemize feminine rage that feels very, very timely and was full of some really great suggestions. Some I have read and some I have not. So just a great list of recommendations. So I think those are my 2 recs for this week. Definitely check them both out. That is it for me today. I hope you're having a wonderful week, and thank you so much for watching.